everyone. Hope you guys are having a good Friday. So practically the weekend now, right? I meant to come on here yesterday and talk to you, but the hours just slipped away before I knew it. It was late, and I was like, oh, we'll just talk tomorrow. So last week I gave you 5 tips that you could use with any camera to start taking better pictures of your kids, and I am hoping that they were a help to you because I've got 5 more for you today. So just to review real quick, last week I talked to you a little bit about we started out with clean your lens. So especially like if you're taking photos with your phone, we set it on the counter where it, you know, when you're cooking and you got something sticking on your hands and you want to touch the screen of your phone or something, a lot of times or we throw it in our purse or a diaper bag or put it in our pockets, and then our lens is all dirty. So we started out with, very first thing before you're going to snap a picture, just kind of glance, check, make sure that the lens is clean on your phone, the front camera and the back camera. And then the same thing if you're shooting with an actual camera. You just want to look at the lens and make sure you don't see like dust, scratches, or smudges. Clean it off, and that will get you off on the right foot of taking better pictures. We talked about using natural light and getting down low, maybe on the floor, because instead of just shooting looking down at your children all the time, just try to get down more on their level, see the world from their perspective. We talked about focusing on their eyes and how you could do that with mobile, like iPhones. It's pretty simple. Then we talked about just getting closer to your subject, closer to your kids, to try to document more of the details about them. And so if you missed that video, there's a recording. You can just look under videos here on this Facebook page. Also, I wrote about it on my blog. So if you go to momphotobalm.com/blog, you can find those first 5 tips. And so today I'm going to talk to you about how to take better pictures of your kids, part 2. So I've got 5 more tips for you today. And I see that some people are joining us now watching, so that is pretty cool. I hope you guys are doing good today. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so the first tip I have for you today is to just stop posing. What I mean by that is, like, sometimes we get so caught up in trying to take a pretty picture. Like, we just want it to be great for our Christmas card or something like that. And those photos do have their place. But really, day-to-day living, the photos that really matter to me when I look back at photos that I even took this past week, even this morning, I snapped a few pictures with my phone. And, yes, Laura, the pose is torture. So quit fighting it. Like, just start, instead of trying to create a pretty picture, just try to document what is. And so really what that does is it takes a lot of stress off of you as the mom trying to get a good shot of your kids, right? So if you quit trying to like force them to sit close together, put your arm around your sister or your brother, or lean a little closer, all those things are wonderful tips, and they really would help you take a better picture, except kids don't tend to cooperate. They don't really want to do that all the time. And then you're left looking at this picture that has a memory attached to it of you griping at them whining about it, and it's just kind of like tainted. Like, the beauty of it doesn't mean as much. I know personally, just did this with my boys. Here in Texas, our state flower is the blue bonnet. It's kind of like a tradition. Some people think it's cheesy, but you go out, you take a picture of your kids in the blue bonnets. Well, I try to do this every spring, but I don't always get one. This year we found a little blue bonnet patch near our house, and I was like, hey, let's go take a picture in this. First off, did it in the wrong time of day. I did it when my littlest should have been taking a nap, so that was like problem number 1. Problem number 2, it's a little bit windy, and I was trying to do this with a tripod and use my phone as like my remote clicker. I was wearing a dress, my kids were a little bit fussy, we were just fussing at each other, and now when we look at those pictures, I said, like 7-8 minutes into it, I said, oh, cut this out. We have to be done. This is why I do not enjoy posing y'all for pictures, or myself for pictures, because we always wind up grouchy. And then I look back at these, you know, pretty decent photos of us in these blue bonnets just to have, and we were grumpy, and we remember that. And so I was like, we just gotta stop. I don't want any more documentation of being grumpy at one another. So we stopped and packed up, went home, and that was our pictures in the blue bonnets this year. They're decent. I love them. I'm going to cherish them forever, but they're just not my thing. I would much rather take a picture of my kids as they are, doing something that they enjoy, something that interests them, something that has captured their attention or fascination, or something they're working on. And so, like, this morning, I snapped a few pictures. My dad came over and brought some vegetables from his garden, and just was talking to us in the kitchen, and I just kind of stepped back a little bit, got my phone out of my pocket, snapped a few pictures like that. Not one time did I say, hey everybody, look over here at me, say cheese. Stop posing. That is probably my most helpful tip I could give you today, is stop posing. Just stop trying to create pretty pictures. Just document what is happening, because what is happening is actually, in fact, beautiful. Right before I came on here live today, I shared a little quote from the blog, and it was talking about let me make sure I quote this right. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11, God has just finished in those scriptures, he's just finished that chapter by talking about different seasons in life. And the thing about seasons is they just repeat. You know, you've got winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall. And so these seasons that are described in God's word in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, once you go through one, it doesn't mean you're never going to go through it again. It's just going to keep cycling back around until Jesus comes again or till you die, right? So these seasons just keep repeating. And the thing of it is, God said right after he described all these seasons, he said, he hath made all things beautiful. And so whatever's happening in your home today, whatever season that you're in, God actually said that's beautiful. So if you don't see it as beautiful, it's not because it's not. It's all in your perspective. So just take a step back. Stop trying to make a pretty picture. Just look around at what is. Maybe it's just messy counters or dirty dishes in the sink or toys all over the floor. It's not always going to be like that. It's just a season, and it's going to change. And so right now, just try to document that. Just try to photograph that. It's amazing when you step back and you think that in God's epic plan for the world and life and all of his creation, in this big, huge story, it's all about grace and it's all about mercy. And we have those things through Jesus. And it's just an honor, really, to have your camera and get to be one of his storytellers. You are a part of his master story plan, his epic that he's writing for us. And your story is important. So stop posing it. Stop trying to make it look like something it's not. And just photograph what it is. I know you will love those photos. So first tip today, stop posing. Second tip, okay, so you might be thinking, wait a minute, Kat, like, my house is messy. I don't know that I want to document that and remember that. I mean, really, it's not like magazine worthy. I'm not going to be in Better Homes and Garden or Country Living magazine or anything like that. Like, you have not seen my place right now. Well, my next tip is pay attention to the background. So I shared some photos on the blog titled How to Take Better Pictures of Your Kids Part 2. So I shared some photos on there. So after this video, if you haven't already, go over to the blog and look at them so that it will make better sense what I'm trying to describe here. But pay attention to the background. So I shared two pictures of my boys outside jumping on the trampoline in our backyard. And in one of the pictures, you can kind of see my kids, but they really get lost in the shadows of everything that's behind them. So they're on the trampoline closest to my camera. But back behind them is like the horizon. And there's like a hill and a tree line and fence. And the thing about it is they get kind of lost in that. Well, I cannot move mountains, right? Like, I can't move the tree line. I can't move my fence. I'm not going to, like, lift the trampoline and move it to a better location while they're jumping just so I can get the shot. Oh, goodness, no. That's not within my capability. But what I can do is I can change where I am. So I really didn't even move my feet for the second photograph of the boys jumping. All I did was I squatted down. Like, I got down low. That was one of the tips from the first video last week. I got down low, and then once I got down low, I also angled my camera up. So can you see? I was like looking like this. And so the second shot, what that caused to happen was like made the sky just become the background. It removed the distraction of the fence and the tree line and the hill in the background, and it just became this big bright sky, and then my boys just jumping up and down on the trampoline, and it was just these wonderful, like, action-packed silhouettes of them jumping. And so all I did, though, was just squat down and angle my camera upward, and I was able to remove the distractions of the background of my photo. So you don't have to clean up your house or anything to get some photos where the background's not distracting. Maybe you just need to change where you're standing, or change how tall you are, or how, we can't really change how tall you are. You know what I mean? Like, get on a stepladder, stand in a chair, or squat down low, like sit on the floor, and then just kind of play around with your perspective. So we can talk more about background things that are distractions, but really, if you just kind of are aware of what's happening behind, like right now I'm trying to do this video, I tried to minimize distractions so you could focus on me, and I chose like a blank wall behind me. That was on purpose because I want my face right here to be the focus of your attention right now. I see another comment. Laura says, I just took a pic of the girls twirling in the hamper in the background. It was like rats. Okay, yeah. So be aware of the background, right? Obviously, if you got some mad Photoshop skills, you could like probably Photoshop a lot of distractions out of the background, but goodness gracious, that takes a lot of time. And when you're a mom trying to chase around two girls who are twirling around, I mean, you don't want to have to stop and like edit a photo for like 20 minutes just to remove a distraction from the background. So like next time, maybe you could even say, come this way girls, let's twirl in the living room if you know there's better light, or come this, you know, you don't really have to change the scene. Maybe just change where you're standing too. I don't know. They're girls, they'll probably twirl again. My boys are gonna jump on the trampoline again. I'm gonna get another shot at it. But so stop posing, pay attention to the background, and then my third tip for you today is try to make a creative composition and use the rule of thirds. So the third tip today is use the rule of thirds. And what I mean by that is just imagine when you're looking through the viewfinder of your camera, or you're looking on the screen, the LCD screen, or just the screen of your phone. On your iPhone, I know you have the option to turn on grid, like in your camera options. And so you can turn on a grid. It looks like a tic-tac-toe board, right? So it's like 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines, and it divides your screen or your viewfinder into like 9 squares. I had to pause and do math for a second. Divides it into 9 squares. And the idea, the whole concept of this, there's like scientific studies that say our eyes are drawn to where those lines intersect. So if you place the subject of your photograph, so if it's like your kids, if you place them where they're along those intersecting lines, and maybe their head or their face is where the lines meet, either at the top intersecting points or the bottom intersecting points of your camera, well, if you place them there, then science says that it is more appealing to like your audience or your viewer. It just makes the composition of the photograph better. And so you can think of it like a tic-tac-toe board, or the pound key or hashtag sign, however you want to think about it. Just a photo grid that divides your screen into 3 squares across and 3 squares up and down. And so just think about that grid and try to line up your subject of your photograph, your kids. Try to line them up there. There's also a tip you can use with that where you try to, talking about minimizing distractions in the background. So for instance, my kids jumping on the trampoline again, I could try to place that horizon line, try to keep your horizon straight along either the top third or the bottom third. So like if you keep your horizon level down here, then all you see is everything that's happening above it, and I don't know, it just balances out your photo a lot better. So play around with that grid on your phone and try to use the rule of thirds as you are photographing this coming week, or even later today. So I put some examples on the blog as well of using creative competition with tic-tac-toe, which I just meant the rule of thirds. So there's some photographs, just different ones, different examples of how to use that and how I have used it recently. Okay, the fourth tip that I want to give you today is to create a sense of scale in your photographs. And so when I was trying to find an example of this in my own photos to share with you, I was looking, like in my folder 2017, and I was like, man, I need to use this tip more. So what I mean is to create a sense of scale of how small your baby is, or in the scope of this big world. So I found a photo of my oldest boy, who's 13, and he's outside, and he's actually playing his guitar underneath these huge giant trees. And so I was taking pictures of him up close, his hands strumming on the guitar, and his feet, he was barefooted, and so I was taking pictures of his feet and everything. And then I thought, wait a minute, let me step back for a second and let me try to create a sense of scale, because even though most days I'm like, oh my goodness, he is getting so big, like, how am I the mom of a 13-year-old? That's crazy to me still. So when I stepped back though, and I just moved myself back, I looked at him and I was like, he's actually still small. Like, in comparison to this giant, massive tree, my boy is still small. And so I tried to create a sense of scale of how, like, his size. We have another photograph of one of my boys, and he's like laying on the couch, and it's my youngest boy, and my other boys had placed a football beside him. And so now we look back at it, we're like, oh my goodness, James was like small like a football. Look how big he is now. He can throw a football. So try to find objects around you that can create a sense of scale of the size of your children. And so, sometimes, like our tip last week was to get up close, and this tip is almost the exact opposite. It's like step back and get a sense of scale of how they fit into this big, big world. So my last tip to share with you today is actually my favorite one, and it is, don't forget your digital darkroom. And what I mean about that is just edit your photos. Okay, so when everybody was shooting with film, right? You took your roll of film out of your camera and you went to like Walmart or Kmart or something like that, and you dropped your film roll into the envelope, and you filled out, if you had any kind of instructions about your prints, you sent it to the lab, and then you went and picked up your photos. And when you did that, what happened was at the lab, they processed those negatives to give you your final image. And then you went back and you picked up your photos and you're like, oh my goodness, look, look, look. And you had something tangible in your hands. Well, what's happened with everything being digital now is that we take these pictures, and then we feel like, because we have this instant gratification. So we take the picture, we can see it now right away, and we're like, oh my goodness, my babies are so cute. Well, let me share this with the whole wide world on my Facebook or on my Instagram. And so then you post it. Well, the one thing that I think will really help you improve your photos is just to edit them. Sometimes, like, I left a list of apps that I use or programs or software that I use to actually edit my photos. And so you can read those, and they're like hyperlinks. You can just click on them if you go to the blog and read the most recent post, scroll down to the last tip, and you'll see, like, I used Visco, Snapseed, PicTapGo. On my computer, you can use PicMonkey. It's web-based, or if you want to have software, you can go with Adobe's Lightroom or Photoshop. You can even do a subscription base to them, so your product is always up to date, and you can have the latest, coolest features. Oh, I see some comments. Let me make sure I'm not missing anybody. Laura says, one of my favorite pics of my babies are on the king-size bed, the tiny little loves. I know. I have a picture like that of James too, and I look at him like, oh, it's just one of my most favorite pictures. You're right, because it gave a sense of scale of how tiny they are. Hey, I'm glad someone else is watching now too. Okay, so use your digital darkroom. You don't have to like spend hours editing each photograph, no, but you can go in and you can polish it. Okay, so what I like to do with mine is because I really just like to tell a story with my photographs, and I want you to remember the actions and the story that was happening or unfolding in front of me. I want to know, when I look at my final picture, I want to remember how I felt when I took it, and how my kids felt when I took it. Like, I kind of want to remember the emotion or the feeling that happened, that I felt in the room, in my house, at that place. I want to try to figure out ways to infuse that into my photographs. And one of the first steps that I have realized I can do that is by converting my photos from color over to black and white. And sometimes you might hear photographers say the word like monochrome or something like that, something similar to that. What they're doing is they're just removing the color, removing the distraction of color, and then just focusing, I guess, more like on line and shape and contrast, and for me, emotion and story. And so maybe just play around with that. Maybe you love bright, vibrant colors and things like that, which I do too. I can definitely appreciate photos like that. I just convert probably about 95% of my images to black and white. So there is that 5% for me personally that I leave in color, because I know that color is so essential to that story. But if I don't feel like color is adding to my story, then I almost always convert mine to black and white. And then from there, I usually just play around with contrast and clarity or details, and I just play around I use Lightroom primarily on my computer, and I'll just kind of play around with different sliders in there in the develop module, and it's just really fun to me. Like, that feels like the completion of the process. So I see something initially, right? I see something happening in front of me, and then that compels me to want to photograph it. So I get out my camera, whichever one it may be, my phone or my DSLR, and I go to take a picture of it. And in the moment, there's something that sparked inside of me that made me want to take the photo. That's the thing that I'm trying to remember when I take the photograph. I'm trying to remember that feeling. And I think I do that best when I convert my own images to black and white. But the thing about photography is it's art. So it's subjective to the viewer. Like, I have a personal story myself that's not the same as yours. My childhood, my teenage years, my 20s, and now I'm into my 30s. My story there is different from your story. And so we bring like different biases with us along the way, and your past definitely affects your present. But the thing about past is you can't do anything about it, but you can do something about right now. And you're not even guaranteed tomorrow. So what am I going to do today? Well, as a Christian, I feel like one of my main purposes being here on earth is to share the gospel of Jesus, to tell others about him, what he did, what he's doing, what he's going to do, why he came, where he is now, and what he's doing now, and to mostly tell them that he's coming again. And I have found that for me, with my camera, I can do that pretty effectively. And so I would love to have the opportunity to talk with you more about how you can do that with your camera. And if you don't know about Jesus, if you don't know about his story, you have a story. And I know that his story would like to meet with yours. And so I would love to make that introduction for you through photography. So if you want to talk more about photography, message me here, email me. I like to be on Instagram too as well. I see another comment. Laura says, the only editing I have ever done is changing color and cropping. Hey, that's a start though, right? Like, sometimes you can minimize distractions by just simply cropping them out. And then changing the color, do you mean changing it to black and white, or like playing with different color filters? Because either one is fun, right? And no one way is right or wrong. However you feel your image should look, you're the only one that knows how you felt when you took it. And as a mom, I think mamas are the ones that have the most insight into how our children are feeling. And so I feel like, while I can't read their minds, obviously, I think that, well, I like to tell them all the time, I love them more than anybody else on this earth does. Jesus is the only person who loves them more, who knows them more, who cares about them more, and then mama, right? Right, that's what mamas think, and it's probably the truth, honestly. And so whenever we're photographing our children, we're photographing them from a place where we know them. we know their story. I mean, we've known them since before they were born, right? So who better to tell about their childhood than the person who knows them best on this earth? It's amazing, right, to be storytellers like that. And so I think there's so much more story to tell and so much more story to share. And so for a while, I myself was like, I stepped back from social media. I got off of Facebook. I wasn't on anything. And then very much in the recent days, months, weeks, I have felt like God was telling me, no, Catherine, that's hiding the talent that I've given to you. There's a story, my story, and you need to find ways to infuse it into the gift I've given you, and you need to share that. So that's what Mom Photobomb is. It's just me trying to do what I believe God's called me to do, and that's to talk to other mamas about how they can tell their story and how they can tell his. And so I would love to continue this conversation. I would love to talk with you more, but I know it's Friday and you guys probably have plans, or you're going to do something, or you're just like, hallelujah, we made it through another day or another week. Let the weekend begin, right? So anyway, we have plans tomorrow. We're going to be getting things ready at our church for Vacation Bible School. That's starting next week. And so that's what we're going to be doing over the weekend and kicking that off. And we're going to have a lot of fun with that. I think we have a friend's birthday that we're going to try to make too as well. So I hope that you guys have a good weekend. If you have any questions or anything like that, go leave me a comment here, or you could private message me here. You can email me, K-A-T, at momphotobomb.com. You can take a minute, go read on the blog where you can see some of the photo examples that I shared to the tips that I gave you today. So far I've given you 10 tips now to help you take better pictures of your kids, right? So if you missed them, go rewatch this video and the previous one and head on over to the blog, momphotobomb.com/blog, and read them there. If you think that they were worthwhile tips, would you please share them, or share this video, share the blog post, tell some more people about Mom Photobomb, and let's start sharing our stories together. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for commenting during the video. It always helps me feel a little bit more at ease, like I'm not just talking to myself and my phone. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you'll have a great weekend. Bye!